Hi, my name is Sarah Lambries. I'd like to briefly introduce myself and take you on a tour of my professional portfolio for the Mathematics in Education program at the University of Alaska Southeast. I earned my bachelor's degree in elementary education in grades K through 8 at the University of New Mexico in 2004. I'm beginning my 9th year teaching this fall. I have taught in several different states. I began my teaching career in Virginia. Then, after 4 years of teaching 3rd grade, our family moved to Alaska, where I taught K through 6 technology for 1 year, 2nd grade for 2.5 years, and 3rd grade for 2 years. This year, I'll be teaching 4th grade in Illinois. 2 years ago, I began my journey to complete my master's degree in mathematics and education at the University of Alaska Southeast, because I enjoy mathematics and want to share my knowledge and passion for math with my students. Today, I would like to take you on a tour of my portfolio. I will briefly outline my thoughts on each goal and share some of the artifacts I chose to demonstrate my understanding of each goal. This is the home page of my portfolio. On the left-hand side, you'll see links to each page within my portfolio and the option to contact me at the bottom. Goal 1, Philosophy of Education. At the top of each page, you'll see the goal listed, and then you'll see the statement and/or evidence outlined by the University of Alaska Southeast in the top right-hand corner. As you scroll down each page, you'll see hyperlinks that I put in blue type. You'll also see statements that I've taken from different papers that I've written for classes in blue type as well. So you'll just have to scroll over it to see if it's a hyperlink or not. My philosophy of education has 4 key components. They are creating a safe and encouraging learning environment, constructing meaning, engaging my students, and using data and assessments to inform my instruction. My philosophy of education has artifacts listed throughout it in blue type. One of those would be a video of myself modeling how I teach mathematics in my classroom. I did this to help involve my parents. This helps create a safe and encouraging learning environment in my classroom. I also included a link to my research study that I completed in the fall of 2013 and spring of 2014. Under constructing meaning, I included a community-based problem that I created for my students because in order for them to apply the knowledge they're learning in the classroom, I want them to see how it relates to their real world. I also work hard to engage my students, so I've included a video of myself using a Kagan strategy called Rally Coach. I included a problem that my students did in class, and then a video of them acting it out as well. It's very important that we engage our students and get them involved in solving problems and show them many different ways to solve problems. So this was just one of the ways we solve problems in our classroom. Finally, I included a little information about how I use data that I've collected through different assessments in order to inform my instruction. Goal 2 is human development. Under human development, I begin by discussing the theories behind human development, and then I go into kindergarten and 2nd grade, how students develop in those years, and then 3rd to 5th grade, looking more at how students use the different operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and how important it is to encourage these students to move from concrete to more abstract. So I believe I mentioned it up here, using place value blocks, number lines, and different sets of objects. As students work with these concrete objects, then they begin to understand it more, and they can move into more abstract math by using symbols and things to solve problems. One artifact that I included that I want to share is the rounding chart, because the rounding chart helps students understand what we're doing when we estimate or round. I like this because I created this using a number line, so students can automatically see what's happening when you estimate. When you just tell them 44, round that to the nearest 10. Well, what is the nearest 10? This way they can see that. So they put their number at the top, and they put the tens or the hundreds it's between on the left and right side, and then they use these little visual cues to help remind them what happens and why you would round. But the number line just lets them see that. So this is very important as students develop their mathematical thinking, to give them these cues and these concrete things to help them understand it. I also included a rounding song and rounding bingo, which I think just incorporate the multiple intelligences, just that students learn in different ways, and that's part of their development as well. We have to, as teachers, reach out and try to address the many different ways students learn. In the section that's called K-8 development, I touched on other things that I learned through the program, which one thing I really learned was about Van Hyle levels of geometric thought, and just how students progress in their geometric thinking as they progress through grade school. So I included that concept description down here under artifacts, and I also included a lesson plan for EDMA 654 because I think it really models moving from concrete to more abstract thinking, which again is important as students develop their mathematical thinking. Goal 3 is adaptation, and at the top of adaptation I have a picture of MC Escher House of Stairs. I like this because it really encourages teachers to think about how students learn. Each student is different. Some students are going to look at this picture and see the stairs going up, others are going to see it going down, and I think that really that's really how I look at teaching. I want to make sure I'm adapting to all of the needs in my classroom, and I do that through many different ways. Throughout this page, I discuss different ways that I adapt to fit the needs of the different learners in my class. I touch on Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences and some different ways that I address that. I also talk about using different assessments, so some informal assessments and some that are not informal to help assess my students and to meet their needs as learners. So one way I do this is I use CGI boards for addition and subtraction. And then I also use things like Take 10 charts when my students have to turn in assignments. This way I'm giving them a choice. So students who are better at doing pages, like worksheet type pages, they have that option. But students who want to choose a project that's worth 10 points can really look at including art or whatever it is that they excel at, but they're still meeting those standards laid out in the Alaska Common Core Standards and NCTM, but they're doing it in a way that best fits their needs. I also included a community problem here because, again, I think it's important for students to understand how important math is outside of the classroom. Goal 4 is math content knowledge. Math content knowledge has several different content areas addressed in it, so I try to touch on each strand, but more importantly, I try to include the Alaska Common Core Standards and NCTM and address them as I reflect on how I teach problem solving and algebra and other content strands under math content knowledge. Some artifacts that I included are a case study for problem solving. Under mathematical communication, I included a little excerpt from EDMA 614, which you can see right here. Under mathematical connections, it's important that we try to encourage our students to apply their mathematical thinking outside of the classroom. So I included 3 different community problems, which you can access by clicking on the blue links. Under mathematical representation, I spoke about using manipulatives in the classroom to help teach algebra. Then under numbers and operations, again, I talked about subitizing and why it's important to recognize numbers quickly as you look at them. I also talked about how important it is to be careful about the verbiage that we use with our students when we're teaching numeration and operations. Some other things that are included in content knowledge are different perspectives on algebra, geometries, and measurement, and data statistics and probability. Goal 5 is making connections. During the course of my master's program, one of the key classes that really helped me make connections between different curricular areas was my STEM course, EDMA 693. And this is a picture of my son. He helped me do a lesson during that course. This is Google Earth, and we use Google Earth to help us design a playground. Some other things that I included in here for my artifacts are a design structure that my 6th grade student created using Minecraft. So this again was a STEM lesson which incorporated science, technology, engineering, and math. I also included a video of my son explaining his STEM lesson that he did on designing a playground. Another key component of making connections is using assessment to plan, evaluate, and strengthen instruction. So I included an excerpt from my research study focusing on the academic portion of my research. It just outlines how I use assessment to inform my instruction. Goal 6 is management, so how you manage your classroom. And I included this picture because I think it shows how I set up my class in teams. I have 4 students, and I really look at the different levels of the students as I'm setting up these teams and how they're going to work together. You can also see kind of how I manage my math board, and that I have the different content, the different I can statements posted up there as well. In the second paragraph here, I really go into how I set up my cooperative learning teams. And then I also discuss how I use manipulatives in the classroom to help my students have something concrete to help them construct meaning as they're learning mathematics. Goal 6 also talks about actively engaging learners. So I talked about how I engage students in my class. One of the big ways I engage students is by getting parents involved. So I included a link for my research study on parental involvement. I also try to engage my students by creating a safe, supportive environment, so I included that statement as well. And then I did take a break from teaching in 2014, so I wanted to mention that here. I feel like I really worked hard to keep involving my students and parents, even when I wasn't in the classroom. So I created some lessons that they can do and shared those on my blog post on my webpage. Goal 7 is collaboration. I work very hard to collaborate with my parents, and I use this Wordle here to kind of express some of the different words that really remind me of collaboration. Under collaboration, I talked about different ways that I collaborate with my parents. One of those is through a newsletter, which you can see I included here using Scribd, and it kind of outlines how I changed my newsletter. I added websites so parents could support their kids at home. So you can see thinkcentral.com and Math is Fun website. It didn't quite load correctly on here, but you get the idea. You can see that I've worked hard to really revise my website to reflect my parents' needs. I also included another video of myself modeling a lesson for my parents. I included a link for my class website, my class Symbaloo, which shows parents different quick links for their students that they can access to practice skills we've learned in class. And again, an additional artifact would be my research paper on parent involvement, because I feel that's a key component in collaboration. Goal 8 is professionalism. So just how do I contribute to my peers and to their learning? So I move a great deal, so it's often hard to take on leadership positions, but in my first school in Virginia, I was on the math committee and became the math chair, so I included math placement tests that we designed, a math training on an effective classroom, and then very recently I've designed a classroom website, and I've worked with some of my colleagues to share what I've learned through that and how they could set theirs up using Weebly as a format. I also included my professional growth plan, because this shows how I work with my colleagues. It was actually on language arts, but it does show how I communicated with my colleagues and how we bounced ideas off of each other. I included my gamification module because I worked with my peers through this process, and then I also included my first Google Hangout, which was a meeting with professionals on gamification. Goal 9 is technology. I feel that technology is a great tool, but I also feel that we don't always need to include it. Throughout this course, this master's program, I've learned a lot about technology and incorporating it. So I included my classroom website, my Symbaloo link, a QR code that I created, and notes on other apps, my Understanding by Design unit on my Salmon Lifecycle, and then my online module on gamification. I hope you've enjoyed my brief introduction to my portfolio. If you have any questions, click on the Contact Me link, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.